that. And just before we get on to the topic today, just wanted to draw your attention to the my YouTube channel, where most of these videos that I'm making you can see again or browse through them. I've got 843 subscribers now, and I'm hoping to get up to 1,000. So if you haven't subscribed and you go to the channel, then just click here on this red button, and that will bump up my total. Hopefully I'll get to 1,000. But the topic for this evening is the forcing defense, and it is a slightly tricky topic, or it can be, or sometimes it just works out in bridge. But what happens, what it is a situation where the defense can sometimes gain extra tricks by forcing declarer to ruff, so that eventually declarer loses control of trump. And this can happen for the defense when you've got good trumps. Consider leading a long suit, even if declarer starts ruffing it. And don't be put off leading that suit again, even if declarer has already ruffed once, as long as declarer can't ruff in both hands. So normally you can gain in this situation, and we'll look at a few examples of this, where declarer ruffs one or more times in the long hand and can actually run out of trumps. And for declarer, the tip would be really try not to ruff in the long hand unless you have a good reason to do it. And the exceptions, times where it is a good reason, is you might be cross ruffing as a way of making more tricks, or you might have weak trumps that you need to take tricks by ruffing with. There's something called a dummy reversal, which is a slightly advanced topic, although I do have a video there. Or sometimes ruffing because you need an entry. And another tip for declarer is if you've been drawing trumps and there's just one high trump out, normally leave it out. Don't draw it, just leave it out. So we'll look at some examples of all this in a moment. And let's start with this hand here, where you as south, you've opened one heart. There was a one spade overcall, north bid 2 diamonds, you rebid 2 hearts, and your partner took you to 4 hearts. And the opponents lead the ace of spades, and down comes dummy, and you need to stop to make a plan. And what I'd like you to do on this hand is try and work out how many potential losers you think you might have. So just close this window, some birds outside. Try and work out how many potential losers you might have. So go through it a suit at a time, count up your losers in each suit, and in a moment I've got a poll where you will have a chance to reply with how many potential losers do you think declarer has. I'll give you a moment to count. And here comes the poll. How many potential losers do you think declarer has here? Okay, let's end the poll and I'll share the results with you. And most of you here have gone for 3, 76%, with 5 people saying 4 and 1 person saying 5. So let's switch back to the hand and have a look at it. So I agree with you, those of you who said 3, because I can see I'm going to lose 2 spades here. I'm not going to lose any more than 2 spades, because after that I'll be able to ruff. And I'm going to lose the ace of hearts. I don't think I'm going to lose any diamonds, and I don't think I'm going to lose any clubs. So yes, I agree, declarer has potentially 3 losers here. If you said something other than 3, do watch this video again and look at it again and try and persuade yourself that there are in fact only 3 potential losers in the normal way of play. If anyone who said 4 or 5 would like to tell me why, I'm very happy to hear that. But I think,
yes,
yeah,
I said 4.
Yeah, why was that?
Because the potential loser in spades, you might have to trump it, and you might not have enough trumps.
I mean,
So many hearts.
Based on the lesson you're giving us.
Yeah, in the normal way of things, you wouldn't expect to lose more than 2 spades unless.
No. Okay, I agree. Normally I would have said 3, but because of the lesson, I said 4.
Okay, that's a good answer. Okay, so yeah, normally you would expect to just lose 3, but things can go wrong in some situations, and let's have a look at how this one goes. So the opponents start off taking their first spade, and they take a second spade, and they take a third spade, and you ruff. Okay, now what you're going to do is draw trumps, and you have pretty good trumps, even though you've already ruffed once, and you're going to start by drawing trumps. You're forcing out the ace of hearts at some point here, so that's 1 round gone, and you play another round, and East discards, and that is slightly bad news for you. You should take stock at this point and realize that you've drawn 1 round of trumps where everyone followed. You drew a second round where East discarded, but you ruffed 1, so that's 8 trumps have gone, and now you've got 9, 10, 11. So West is sitting there with the 2 remaining trumps, including the ace. And if we bring up the 4 hands, you can see what West has got left. And let's see what happens if you continue trying to draw the last trump. Well, if you play another trump here, West can win this one, and at this point you are actually in a bit of trouble, because West has now gained the lead, and if West goes back to playing spades, he can force you to ruff with your last trump while he still has a trump. So if he does that, he finds the right defense and plays another spade. You can't ruff it in dummy. You can ruff it if you like in your hand, but now you've lost control of trumps. Even though you started with quite good trumps, because West had quite good trumps too, you're out of trumps. So you can't draw that last trump anymore. All you can do now is try to cash your many winners as you can. So I suppose you take your ace and queen of diamonds. Suppose you shift to the clubs now. Try to take as many clubs as you can. But at some point, West is going to ruff in with his last trump, and he can cash another spade, and there's nothing you can do about it. And you've gone down in a apparently straightforward contract, but you ran out of trumps, and you actually only made 8 tricks there. You lost, went down 2 there. If I click on this GIB button, go back to the beginning, you'll see that the winning defense here is to lead a spade. On any other defense, on any other lead, declarer can make the contract. But if they lead spades and keep playing spades every time they get in, then you can suffer what's called a forcing defense, and you can run out of trumps. Was there anything you could have done about that? Well, you could have done a little better. Let's take it back to the point where you've ruffed the spade there. You start drawing trumps, and you discover when you play the next round that you've got a bad trump division, that they divided 4-1, and that West has now got 2 trumps. You can actually do better now if you don't play trumps, if you don't try and draw that last trump, and just try to take tricks in your other suits. In other words, you're going to go down 1 here because you've already lost 2 tricks, and the ace of hearts is going to be another trick, and you're going to let them ruff once, but you can't. It works out better to do that than to try to draw that last trump. So you might try and take some clubs, but at some point West will get in and will ruff with their 7 of hearts, and they can now maybe they might draw your last trump with their ace. They can play a spade, and but you still have a trump which you can ruff, and you've now got the rest of the trick. So you'll be down 1 rather than down 2 if you play it that way. This hand is also quite interesting from the point of view of the defense, because this is a kind of hand where with 4 trump and with a good side suit, the winning strategy is to play that suit and to force declarer to ruff. But the other thing you have to do on this hand is be careful about when you take your ace. So declarer gets in again and starts drawing trump. It's important for you to take your ace at the right moment. In other words, don't take it yet, but the ideal time to take it is when the last trump is played from the north hand, because then when you play a spade, you'll force declarer to ruff in their own hand. If you make the mistake of taking it too early, like taking it at this point, now if you play a spade, declarer can ruff in the short hand, the 10 of hearts, and still has 2 trumps to draw yours with. So now all he needs to do is get back to his hand, and he'll be able to draw the defense's trumps and make 10 tricks there. So it was important for West to take the ace at the right moment. The other thing that can sometimes go wrong is that West can take the ace too late. So again, let's go through this again, played slightly differently. And you start drawing trumps, you play a second round, and this is the moment that West should take their ace. You can see it'll go down 2 if they take it here. But if they make the mistake of not taking it, of just leaving and they're left with the ace, then what declarer now does is leave that high trump out and just let them ruff in with it whenever they want. So now you just cash your winners. At some point, West is going to ruff with their ace, but you don't care about that because you've still got a trump left. So you've still got a trump left, and you again can make 10 tricks that way. So there's quite a lot to get right, both for the defense and for declarer in these kinds of hands. Let's try another one. Here again, you open 1 spade, your partner bids 2 diamonds, you rebid 2 hearts, and your partner makes an invitational bid of 3 spades, and you go on to 4 spades. It's worth thinking about what you think that 3 spades show. I think he's got 3 spades in his hand and enough to invite game, say 10 or 11 points. Anyway, we end up in 4 spades, and the opponents lead the king of diamonds, and down comes dummy. And again, we're going to stop to make a plan on this hand. And what I'd like you to do to start with is think about what will happen if you win this first trick, draw the opponent's trumps. How many potential losers do you have? So if you draw the opponent's trumps, let's suppose it takes at least 3 rounds to draw the opponent's trumps. How many losers will you have at that point? So I've got another poll for you. And the question is, if you draw the opponent's trumps first, how many potential losers does declarer have here? Some interesting answers there. Let me end the poll and share the results with you. And we've got a wide variety. 38% said 1, 19% said 2, 29% said 3, 10% said 4, and 1 person said 5. So let's see what we think about this. Well, I deliberately asked the question saying if you draw the opponent's trumps first, because if you draw the opponent's trumps first, you will not have any trumps left in the north hand. And you'll be left then, therefore, with 1 spade loser, the ace of spades, and you will have these 2 heart losers. So with those two those will lose tricks unless you're remarkably lucky. And you'll therefore lose 2 hearts, 1 spade. You won't lose any diamonds and you won't lose any clubs. So the answer to the question as I framed it is 3. You have 3 potential losers in this hand. However, a number of you, I think especially those of you who said you've only got 1 loser, are probably anticipating not drawing trumps initially and roughing the 2 hearts in dummy. And indeed, if we do that, if we ruff the 2 hearts in dummy, we can avoid those 2 heart losers if we can ruff them. And we should be able to make 12 tricks. In other words, just lose to the ace of spades. Okay, so that's going to be our plan. We start off, I like to start off on a hand like this, thinking, what happens if we draw trumps? How many losers do we have? Can we get rid of any of those losers? And the answer is here, yes, hopefully we can get rid of the 5 and 3 of hearts as losers by ruffing those 2 cards. And that's what we're going to try and do. So the opponents have led diamond. We're going to win that. And we're not going to touch trumps. We're going to start by playing hearts. This is a normal strategy of ruffing in the shorthand. We win the first trick, say, with the king. We play another heart. That gets through. And we're going to plan to ruff 2 more hearts here. And you might think about what you're planning to ruff them with. You might think, well, let's see if we can ruff the first one with the 7 and maybe the last one with the 10. That could only be over ruff with the ace. So maybe that's a good strategy. So let's lead that. And we ruff with the 7. And so far, so good. Now what? So actually, I've got another poll for you here, which is what suit are you going to play now? You've just ruffed the 5 of hearts with the 7 of spades successfully. And what suit are you going to now lead from dummy? Is it going to be a spade, a diamond, or a club? So here comes that poll. And the question is, which suit are you going to lead from dummy? Spade, a diamond, or a club? Okay, let me end the poll there. And most of you here have gone for the 9 of clubs, 76%, but 20% said a diamond and 1 person said a spade. So let's have a look at this and see what we think. Well, the right card to play here, I agree with you, is the 9 of clubs. I know some people see that void that is now in the south hand, and they think they can get back to their hand with a diamond. And in fact, you can, and most of the time, it would work out just fine to do that. But on a hand like this, by playing a diamond, you're shortening your trump length in the long hand. And if the layout is unfortunate for you, that can actually lead to you losing control of trumps. So if I click on the GIB button, it's actually telling me that the way to make 2 over tricks is to lead a club. It actually says you can make it if you lead the ace of club or the king of clubs. Those cards are not really useful cards. After playing that, you will then have to lead the 9 of clubs. But if you lead anything else, like a diamond or a spade, you can't make the same number of tricks. And we'll look at what happens if we do that. So what we're going to do is play the 9 of clubs. Yes, you're right. Back to your hand. And we're now going to attempt to ruff that last heart in dummy. So we lead that 3. Now, let's suppose West doesn't follow, but discards something. We now actually know, and I'll just bring up the 4 hands, we now actually know that East has got the last heart, so we can ruff high or low here. We were prepared to ruff with the 10, but we can ruff with the 10 or the 4. It doesn't matter now because we know that East has to follow suit. And once we've done that, all we now need to do is get back to our hand with the 10. What you really want to do here is overtake, otherwise you won't be able to continue drawing trumps. So play the king, and then just keep drawing trumps. You see you get a bad trump break here, but it won't be anything you can't handle, because if the opponents, when they take their ace, if they play a diamond, you've still got 2 trump left, and you can draw the opponent's last trump and make your 12 tricks as predicted. So you should be able to make 12 tricks there, regardless of what of this bad trump division. If you make the mistake of roughing a diamond, and this can either happen later on in the play or it can happen earlier on. What I see a lot of people do here is they win that first trick with the ace of diamonds, and they have this great urge to rough a diamond. And you know, if I ask them, why did you rough a diamond here? It's sort of because they can, but it didn't actually gain you any extra tricks. And in fact, because there's a bad trump break, it exposes you to a forcing defense. So just see what happens. You win that one, then you go about your business just as before, playing the ace, king of hearts, roughing a heart, coming back to your hand with a club and roughing your last heart. And you may think at this point that everything is fine, but you're actually in a bit of trouble here because West has got 4 spades. And when you lead another spade, if West wins that one, they can now force you to rough a diamond. So if they lead another diamond, now you have a problem, although you don't necessarily know it yet, but you can rough that, but now West has got more trumps than you. So when you play another spade, you discover the bad break, and you're always going to make this contract because you've made 9 tricks, and you're always going to win a trick with the jack of spades, but you won't make the 12 tricks that you made before. So if you, for example, try to cash your clubs here, the opponents will rough. They can lead another diamond, forcing you to rough, and they've still got a trump. And you can make 10 tricks, and that was all caused by you roughing a diamond, roughing in the long hand.
Tony, why did West discard a 6 of clubs rather than roughing the heart?
Yes, I don't know if it mattered. I think West, it wasn't a bad strategy by West to, let's get back to,
the Queen of Hearts.
Yeah. At this point here, when a heart is played, you can see, West can see that if he roughs, North can over rough, but he can also see that by throwing away a club, maybe he'll be able to rough a club later on.
Oh, okay.
So rather than use one of his trumps, I don't know if it made a difference here. Let's just see if it does make a difference. Yeah. If the computer is saying that if you rough, then Declarer can make his 2 over tricks again. The way to hold Declarer to 10 tricks is actually to discard a club there.
Oh, thank you.
So it's a good strategy not to rough there, but to hang on to those trumps, and because Declarer would rough anyway, and unless you roughed with the ace. So it's a good strategy there to throw away a club rather than rough, especially so you can see it might get over rough. So that's quite an interesting hand, and again, you know, Declarer doesn't most of the time, if Declarer played it this way, they'd be absolutely fine. They'd still make their 12 tricks. But if you've got a bad trump break like here, where there's a 4-1 break, you can lose control of trump. And here's one last hand, and this is actually based on a hand I saw being played online, and it's a bit odd because it doesn't on the face of it look like you're in any danger in trumps, but it turns out that you are. Let's suppose you open 1 spade on this hand, and your partner raises you to 2 spades, and that's passed out. And let's suppose your opponents lead a heart, and down comes dummy, and you might think, oh, that's not much of a dummy, is it? Just 3 points, but you do have 4 spades. So let's anyway try and make a plan on this hand. And same question as before, we're going to think about how many potential losers we think we might have, how many probable or potential losers you think you might have. So look at the suits one at a time and try and work out how many tricks in each suit we're in danger of losing. And I'm going to launch a final poll on this in a moment. Okay, let's share the results with you. And most of you have gone for 5, which I agree with. Other people have said 6 or 4. But yeah, I think 5 appears to be right on the face of it. In other words, I'm expecting to lose 1 spade, 1 heart. Now, what about diamonds? I'm missing the ace and I'm missing the queen. Apart from that, I've got pretty reasonable diamonds. So hopefully I won't lose more than 2 diamonds. And I've got 1 club to lose as well. So yeah, it looks like we might be able to make our contract, losing just 5 tricks at the most. But let's see what happens on this hand. Let's suppose we win that first trick with the ace, and suppose we start to draw trumps. We've got very nice trumps here. We've got 9 trumps here. So let's suppose we start with the king and then play the queen, and they take the ace, and East discard. So again, it's worth counting again at this point how many trumps have gone. That was 7 gone, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there's 1 more trump outstanding. West has got it, but it's not a high trump. It's the 9, I think. So that's reasonable. Things have gone as more or less as predicted. Let's see what happens though if the opponents carry on with hearts and they take a heart trick and they play another heart trick, and let's suppose we ruff that. Okay, and let's just bring up the 4 hands at this point, and we can see there's still that trump out. Let's see what happens if we decide to draw it. Okay, we're drawing the opponent's trump. That's all the trumps gone. And now we've got to play on diamonds. We maybe going to finesse against the queen of diamonds. We'll leave the jack. West, of course, mustn't play the ace there. And let's suppose it loses to the queen. And East, very natural at this point, might start trying to cash some clubs. So they play a club. And when they play another club, if we want to win that, we're going to have to ruff with our last trump in the south hand. So we can do that, but the problem is we haven't forced out the ace of diamonds yet. So if we lead another diamond, West can play their ace, and if they play the king of clubs there, we can't ruff it in our hand, and we'll lose 1 more trick there. After this, we can ruff in the north hand, and we'll make those last 2 tricks, but we'll only make 7 tricks on this hand. So that was a sort of unfortunate one. There was basically what happened on this hand was that East and West played hearts and clubs, and if Declarer wanted to win those, he had to start ruffing. And even though he started with pretty good trumps, he ran out of trumps through all those ruffs. And the trump break here for the defense is not that fantastic. It's 3-1. It's a fairly normal trump break. But if I click on the GIB button, you can see that the computer is saying that if West leads a heart or a club, then the declarer will be defeated by one trick. So you can try and get around this. You might, for example, when you're playing the when you're drawing trumps, you get in here, you might decide not to draw that last trump, but to just play your other suits. But if you do that and the defense still goes as before, they can still force you to ruff here with your trump, and you're in a very similar position to the one you were in before. You're down to your last trump now in the south hand, and you haven't forced out the ace. So if you try to play the ace of diamonds now the defense can play a club, and if you want to win that, you're going to have to ruff with your last trump in the south hand, and now you've promoted the 9 of spades over there. So now the 9 of spades is going to make a trick, and you can't draw it. So whatever happens now, the opponents will make one more trick, and again hold you to 1 down. So this was quite an interesting hand, and even though it looked on the face value you should be able to make your 9 tricks, the opponents can defeat you if they keep plugging away at hearts and clubs on this one. Incidentally, this hand, when it was played, you might think that was a very reckless bid by North to bid 2 spades. But it does make life harder for East to come in there. If North had made the more normal bid of, say, passing, East has an easy bid of 2 hearts here, but I don't know if he's going to come in with a bid over 2 spades, like 3 hearts. It turns out that East-West can make 4 hearts their way. So that 2 spade bid, you know, if it keeps the opponents out, that's not bad, not a bad bid, as it turns out, but a little bit light, shall we say. Any other comments? So this was an example of another forcing defense I saw. Wasn't so obvious here that was the right strategy, but it turned out that even with those excellent spades in the south hand, declarer can lose control of the trump suit. Anyway, that's the end of the lesson for today. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
Tony,
Yes.
why wouldn't East double, asking partner to bid his best suit?
Yeah, so East could have bid double the 2 spades, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you don't quite have the right shape for it because you've only got 2 diamonds. So yes, you could bid something. I mean, it's hard to know whether you should bid 3 hearts or, I mean, if you do double, your partner will probably bid clubs if they get a chance, which is not the best place to be in. Although you do have a good club fit, you can actually make 4 hearts, I believe. But yeah, so East would like to bid something there, but it's a little tricky to bid after 2 spades.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? We'll end the talk there, apart from asking if anyone who needs a partner, if you'd like to speak up now, or
I need a partner.
so Roma, Roma, who else?
Winnie.
Hillary.
Ashwini.
Thank you, Tony. Bye.
Anyone else?
Ashwini.
Ashwini. Anyone else?
And me, Berta.
Berta.
Yeah.
Anyone
I will
else?
play. Ashwini, would you like to play with me?
Yeah, no problem, Berta.
All right.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
next,
no problem.
you could play with Hillary then.
Sure. Okay.
All right.
then. Yeah.
So I'll